Good evening, Giants. Welcome to a special edition of Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to have unshakable confidence? Good evening, Giants. It is 8 p.m. Mountain time.
Mountain with an apostrophe.
Yeah, here with you. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, go ahead and do that. And on Facebook, it's a Tribe of Giants. Come join our community. We've got a really amazing show. Nick, do you have any other updates or special announcements?
Just the event that's coming up on the 15th. If you haven't signed up for the 555 Masterclass, which is going to go through the 12 steps of becoming a giant, and you'll want to check into that because that will be life-changing. We take the principles from the book and really teach you how to grow. And my mission with that is not to have you just take some information out of it, but to come out of that course ready to take on your life like a giant would. So you have tools you can use permanently for the rest of your life. And so if you're good there, I'm going to introduce our guest.
I'm so good. Let's do this.
Yeah, I'm going to read the bio here because it's amazing.
Okay.
What Yvonne E.L. Silver has created. So she's powerful. She's the founder of Women and Wisdom Media, a confidence catalyst who's changing women's lives. She teaches high-achieving female founders and entrepreneurs with a mission-inspired venture to flourish in business and how to move from solopreneur to CEO. And I love this because I had a conversation this morning on the park bench where we talked about this topic. A lot of women and business owners get stuck on a lack of clarity and they struggle with doubts of imposter syndrome. So that came up in park bench this morning. Yvonne teaches them unshakable confidence. I love that. To showcase their value with confident conversations and increase sales velocity, leading to a purposeful, sustainable life with more fun and family time. As the mother of a special needs son, Yvonne teaches women who struggle with balancing their success with having a joy-filled family life of freedom to leave a proud legacy. She's a speaker, best-selling author, radio show host, certified executive coach and mentorship chair, and she was recognized with a Women of Inspiration Award. And she shares wisdom from over 30 years in business, blending her Reiki practitioner and spiritual practices with designations of CEC, Chartered Professional and Human Resources, and is also Bank iOS 6 Intelligence Certified Coach and certified EQI Consultant. Man, and you donate a copy of your book. Can you tell about that a little bit every time you sell?
Yes. I decided that since I'm working with mission-inspired women, that I'm encouraging them to have a purpose element in their business, a social enterprise piece. So I better be doing that myself. So for every copy of Words, Women and Wisdom, The Modern Art of Confident Conversations, my best-selling book, I donate one to a women's shelter foundation.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we're in stacks of 10. It's not one by one, but
yeah,
it's so rewarding to be able to do that. And I had one girl pop up on Facebook recently who said, "Oh, that's the book. You're Yvonne Silver, the author of that book that was on my nightstand when I was in the shelter."
Oh, wow.
And I'm just about to launch my own book, and I have my e-course coming out too. Oh, it gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I love your accent. So as we talk about your history here, we're going to go all the way back in time to where that accent came from. Yeah, it doesn't sound Canadian. A little bit.
I caught it. It's in there.
Well, I've been here 35 plus years. I won't age myself, but I grew up in England and northwest England, 15 miles outside of London, and was there until I got an opportunity to come to Canada with a sales position. They were hiring and training sales reps, and they wanted me to come over as one of 3 people to help them do that. So
amazing! And you stayed. Yeah.
Married and stayed, yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me about life growing up? What was it like for you?
Well, we were a lower middle class household, which is just such an archaic framework because even if you're doing really well in life and you're super successful from a business standpoint, you can only stick within your class. You can never really move ranks, and that annoyed the heck out of me.
Oh, wow.
I love entrepreneurialism and success based on merit.
Yeah.
So it was a post-World War household, very frugal. Dad was in World War II, came back with a bullet from Dunkirk that grazed him, and ended up with PTSD. So
Oh, wow.
I lived with a very angry dad who literally drained the dignity right out of my mom. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was before PTSD was a known thing, right? They would call it shock or something else. Yeah.
Well, they didn't treat them because there was so many hundreds of thousands of men coming back from the war, all of these, traumatic experiences. There was just too many to treat. And he probably wouldn't have admitted that's what it was.
Yeah.
He was just very angry
Yeah.
and very structured and rigid in his behavior as well.
So inside of you, as you're developing and going through that, what pushed you kind of in this direction that you went into? How did that play into it? I guess would be my question.
Yeah, well, it taught me resilience because at age 6, he criticized a very beautiful picture that I had drawn of a goat. At age 11, he told me that I would never, ever be successful in life because I flunked an important exam by 2 marks. And all of this criticism and constant belittling and never feeling supported as a kid, that's what drove my mom to become a very diminished, weak, quiet person. Wow. And I watched her growing up, and I swore I was never going to ever be like that. So I
yeah. So you did. You kind of went on your own path there.
Yeah. And that's why I wrote my book, actually, because I was reflecting on, what was, I wanted to write a book, but I was reflecting on, well, what's my topic? What's my area of expertise? And thinking about where had I done the best in school. It was, English lit. But also this whole topic of conversations, all of my clients kept coming with the same question. How can I be more confident? How can I have more confidence? And so I wrapped around the language and the tools and techniques I'd been using with them into 40 different words and word concepts in the book, and then dedicated it to my mom, my first unmentor.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Talk about that. Unmentor. Yeah. Can you speak about that? What does that mean?
She was basically doing everything, showing me everything not to do. So she let her dignity get drained right out of her. She was a woman professional, working professional. When she met my dad, she was in her 30s. So she was considered to be she was going to be an old maid on the shelf if she didn't get married soon. The clock was ticking. So she married my dad, but he literally, with his anger and his very structured, rigid approach to life, and constant criticism and belittling, just literally wicked away at her personality, and she became this mousy, frail person.
Yeah.
Sad to watch. So that's what I mean by unmentor. She taught me what not to do.
Yeah. Wow. What a concept. I think this is the first time in all the shows that we've done where there's been a concept called unmentorship, where you watch another person and that I'm not going to do that.
No.
Right. Giving it a name, though, that's a beautiful thing, because I think once we give things a name, we can start to begin the process of understanding them, and we often experience these things, but we don't have a name for it. I love the idea of an unmentor. I mean, in reality, in the laws of life, there's usually always an anti for a positive. Anytime there's a positive, there's a negative.
Yeah.
Always. And so an unmentor would make sense. People that are doing things you don't want to do. And I love that concept. Yeah. So, go ahead. What came up right there?
Well, what came up was, as I in my book, there's 175 different references. One of them is Michael Lozier, who wrote the Law of Attraction book. When I had coffee with him, he gave me permission to quote him in the book. But one of his concepts is called clarity through contrast, because very often we know what we don't want in life, but we don't know what we do want. So it's a game of opposites. You write a capital T on a piece of paper, and on the left you put what you don't want, and then what's the opposite of that? I don't want to be micromanaged at work. What do you want? I want to have independence, freedom, and become a subject matter expert and give my boss no reason to be looking over my shoulder. So you do the opposite of that. So it's kind of like unmentor, but it's called clarity through contrast. Very powerful concept.
Yeah, I like that. I like that because I hear often in conversations, people will be very clear about what they don't want, but they don't take the time to create the contrast. And that's powerful. So to just take a moment and cross it, right?
It's move it over. We move faster from pain than we do to pleasure, right? It's the same concept. What is it you don't want? What's the opposite?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know there's some research around that about people they'll work harder to avoid pain than they will to gain something.
Yeah.
And so as you're talking about confidence, so you're going down this path. I mean, was it clear that this is what you were going to do when you were younger? Did it kind of evolve over time? Was there some uncertainty around your life and what you were going to do?
Well, I always had done very well in stepping into unknown situations and just being game to try anything. I was very adventurous as a teenager, climbing the highest trees, swinging on the highest monkey bars. So at 13, I took a job in a retail store. By 14, I was the assistant manager. And things just kept expanding because I was confident in speaking up about other people's things, but I wasn't always confident speaking up about my own needs at that time. So that was something I had to step into and grow into when I saw that what my dad said was actually not my truth. It was his opinion, and I should treat it as just that, his opinion.
Yeah. So is confidence something you grow into?
It's something that I believe comes from taking a situation of adversity or challenge, and breaking through in a way you never dreamed you would. So it's the surprise factor of being able to do something and then look back and go, holy smokes, I never thought I could achieve that. That's one of the things. And for women in particular, I think also knowing that you have the resources to support you while you're making change. So whether that's resources, financial resources, best friends and colleagues who will support you, whatever it might be, have the resources ready so that you can make that big step, that giant step.
Yeah. There's something to be said to that. I, through this whole process, have held on to, like what you say, resources, right? Is I've held on to a job as I've been creating this book and this following, right? Mm-hmm. And it gives me a foundation. It gives me resources to draw from to allow me to create this. And there's a level of confidence that's created in that. And there will be a point where I no longer need that as I advance. Right. And so being able to jump into something that I never thought I could do. Right. Yeah. It sounds like there's an opportunity there that you're going to have the resources. Some of them you'll have through your entire life and others you might not. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah. I mean, monetary things will come and go.
Yeah.
However, what you have intrinsically inside you, if you're really crystal clear on what your gifts are and how you can help others with those gifts, then I believe you'll always be able to find some sort of employment, because you'll either be working for someone else and delivering on their promises, or you'll be working for yourself.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you have that confidence in yourself, you'll always have somewhere to work. You'll have, whether it's in your own thing or something else, you'll always have that. Yeah. And it sounds like you probably had your own journey along the way. Did you just decide I'm going to be confident and then just like that, you're confident?
No. When I first came to Canada, I left because basically I wasn't that close with my family. My sister's a very different personality, much quieter, more like my mum. Okay. And my boyfriend at the time had started dating his best friend's girlfriend. And I came back and opened the door and found that she was there. So it was like this sudden departure. I'm not putting up with crap in my life. I'm leaving. An opportunity came up to come to Canada. Hey, you're 23. Someone wants to buy you a plane ticket to go explore a foreign country where they speak English. I'm in, right?
Yeah, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, so I stepped into it that way.
That was a catalyst then. It was kind of like was that a traumatic? Would you label that as a traumatic event, or was that just an event? I mean, that.
At the time, it was fairly traumatic. But then again, I've learned that people do weird things, and you can't control other people.
Yeah,
all you can do is control how you respond to it.
Ask Nick about all the weird things he does.
Yeah. I'm
just kidding.
Oh, we don't have a show long enough for that. Yeah.
So we do a lot of weird things on this show even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that situation, I chose to not put up with that crap.
Yeah. Wow.
Pardon my French on TV, and step away, move out, carve my own path, take advantage of an opportunity that came up, and step into learning how to do some very skillful sales roles,
Yeah.
and then train others how to do that. So that was the beginning of the art of language from my in my world.
Okay. Yeah. So let's dive into some philosophies around the art of language. Let's talk about confidence. As you look at your book, so your book, when did that come along? You said you started writing it when you were younger. Is that correct?
I
Or
actually
was that later?
I wrote it later. So
Okay.
I wrote it after I had been working as I worked in senior HR roles for
Okay.
about 15 years in high-tech companies
Yeah.
after I stopped that sales role, because there was just too much travel involved. So I took a permanent job when I got married and settled into working with a high-tech, fast-growing company. They wanted to hire a lot more people, so I put my hand up because I really didn't like doing accounting. That was the other part of my job. So I said, well, let me screen and interview people, because I've hired and trained sales reps. And then that morphed into a senior HR role, which by the time I left 15 years later was an HR director role.
I'd get fired in HR.
He would.
Well,
He's an HR nightmare.
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
two types of HR.
Yeah.
There's one which is the police kind of mentality of,
Yeah.
you got to do everything according to our rules and policies and practices. Or there's the business analysis part, the supporter, to say, how can we support you by
Yeah.
hiring the right people and engaging them for what the business needs? And I tended to think about it from the business standpoint.
I find it intriguing that there's this pathway that's starting to evolve in your life, right? And it's unclear. If you were to look forward into the future of your life, it would be really hard to predict the path. But as you look back, you can see this clear path where one thing led to another, to another, to another,
Yep.
and eventually led to where you are today. Would you say that was a straight line?
No, because I've lived and worked in 4 countries, got married, got divorced, had a special needs child. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I think that's the official language of it.
Went from being a full-time permanent employee to doing my own contract HR consulting for 5 years, and then stepped into one more full-time VP role for a global firm doing talent management work. But then stepped back and said, what do I really love doing? I love helping people. I love helping them expand their potential. What is that? Well, that's coaching. So, mentoring being, here's how I did something.
Yeah.
Versus coaching, for the listeners, the difference being holding space and asking powerful questions, which allows the person you're with to come up with their own answer, which they'll be more committed to anyway.
Correct.
And it's not about telling. So I have to keep my pen on my lip to stop myself from providing solutions when I first started coaching.
Yeah. So the idea, like in your bio, we talked about the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And when somebody's coaching, let's say they're doing what they love. So they go out on that path and they're trying it out and they really enjoy it, but maybe they're not getting the movement that they need in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe they're battling some of that imposter syndrome. Perhaps there's some other things at play. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of times they've gotten so busy that they've kind of lost their path. So the first thing I always do is create space for them to work, for us to work together. So let's carve out all the things that aren't serving you, that are sucking up your day, sucking up your time and not adding value. Create some space. Then let's double down and get real clarity on who are you? What are your gifts? What are the things that bring you joy? What do you love to do? Who are you passionate about being around? And from those gifts, then we can create a new path, depending on what the person's core interests are and what impact do you want to make in the world. If you had no limits, like let's just dream big. If you had no limits, what would you be doing?
Yeah. I picture the genie in the lamp, right? Somebody finds the lamp and they rub the lamp and the genie comes out and the genie says, you can have anything you want. And they say something along the lines of, maybe I don't deserve everything. So I'm going to ask for something really easy, or I'm going to do kind of what I know, and they'll stay within the confines of what they know rather than asking for the world and moving into that world. Yeah. I mean, really, if you could imagine the world, like you said, you could have no limitations and you could really create it the way you wanted to create it. How would you create that? It's a powerful way to really look at things.
Yeah. And the other thing is, stepping into greater consciousness and being willing to trust that once you put it out there to the universe, that it will magically show up. The clearer you are, your reticular activating system, your brain's filter for information, starts to show you opportunities in new ways you never would have seen before. It's like you decide to buy a condo. All of a sudden, everywhere you go, you see condo signs for sale. Or you decide you want to buy a red Ferrari. Everywhere you go, you see all these red Ferraris all of a sudden. It's because your brain is saying, that's important information for me because I want it, and I'm going to chase after it. So same thing in any moment of clarity, clearer you are about what it is, the easier it'll be for other people to show up and support you, and the universe to know who to connect you with.
It works too, because you said you were from Canada, and then all of a sudden I tagged everyone from Canada in our group.
Okay, there you go.
And some showed up.
Yeah, there you go.
Hi, Debs.
Well, I'm gonna tie in the book. You know, the message of the giants and the smalls is what you're talking about. There's this start point. Everybody has a different start point. So when they begin their lives or their journey, wherever they begin, there's something at play, and they could have giant parents. They could have parents who are playing small, you know, and it doesn't matter where you begin. There's this questioning of, is there more for me? And for the giant's journey, it's going out onto the uncertain path, right? You're not really sure what the future holds, but you're willing to go do something to create it differently from what you experienced it when you were born. The start point is kind of out of your control. You don't get to choose your parents, but you do get to choose how you interpret it and where you move from there. And so in the giant's journey, when he goes and climbs the giant, he asks the giant to mentor him, to show him how to become a giant. The giant takes off walking, and he's required to go choose to follow in a sense, right? He could have gone home and gone back to the land of the smalls, or he could follow the giant and learn. And so there's a decision that comes when you go out on your own path. Do you go back to what you know, even if it's uncomfortable, which a lot of people do? Or do you step out and you start to create your life differently? And there's a point where you're talking about vision here, that he gets to sit and stand. He stands on the shoulder of a giant, right? And that's why I'm tapping here is he stands on the shoulder of a giant, and he gets a vision of what's possible for him. And then he starts to grow, right? And it's not just automatic that he just starts to grow. He's still got to earn it. He's still got to go out and work for it, right?
Right there.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing is the clarity of the vision. And this is where it gets a little bit into the woo-woo. But when you look at science and the research behind this, you get into physics, and they get to the level where they can't explain consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. This thing that permeates everything. And that's what you're talking about, is this greater consciousness that permeates everything in the world, every piece of material that you see out there. So when you're clear on your vision and you start to speak that to the world, there's a statement that we've used. It was brought up by J.P. Morgan. He was on the show earlier, called abracadabra. Mm-hmm. And abracadabra comes from Aramaic. It means in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. But the reality is they used it as a phrase that would mean whatever you speak becomes reality.
Yep.
And so what you're saying is, as you get clear on your vision, you start to speak that to the world, the magic starts to occur.
Right. And for women in particular, there was some research done through 3 PhD women at the Center for Creative Leadership. And they came up with these 3 words that all begin with C, which are great for women to remember. Okay. So if you are consistent, right? So you've got to consistently show up, do what you say you're going to do. Okay. Caring. So it's not just about listening to other people. It's about doing something with the information that you've learned. So you're showing that you've heard and you're willing to embrace their idea.
What was the second C?
So it's consistency, caring.
Okay.
And then competence is the other one. So knowing that you can do the job and do exceptionally well, because no one's going to give you a bigger job until they've understood what you're capable of and you've got your own job nailed.
Right, right.
3 C's, yeah.
You're growing in capacity with all of that. I mean, the reality is when you have consistency and caring and competence, and something opens up, you've created the capacity to receive that. If I took a 16-ounce cup and poured 32 ounces of fluid into it, it's not going to hold it because there's no capacity for it. It's going to spill over.
Right.
And so I love the idea of consistency, caring, and competence, because you're increasing your capacity so that when an opportunity comes along, you're ready to receive it.
Yeah, and it actually creates trust, especially in the workplace, in a female leader. If you have those three qualities, it's not enough to just be good at your job, because how you do it could be a very misaligned way with the company's vision and their mission and values.
Yeah.
Just to get to the top at any cost is not what people are looking for in leadership now.
I could almost rephrase these. The consistency is integrity, along the lines of integrity, that you know what to count on, right? There's this consistency in the outcome, or how you show up.
Yep.
And then the caring, the empathy side of really making people matter, right? And the competence is the skill that you develop along the way. And so I could see that as a valuable tool for anybody that's going on a giant's journey, whether it's for their own business or working for somebody, that you really want to check, are you showing up consistently as the same person? Because if I can't count on you and your personality, that makes it really hard to know what to expect. And then, like you're saying, I don't trust you. There's a loss of integrity. And so that's really interesting to me. So this is based off of research around performance. Is that right? And trust?
Or building trust in the workplace as a female leader.
Okay.
That's the specific reference. And it was the Center for Creative Leadership, 3 female PhDs that did it. It's actually quoted in my book. So
yeah, I love it. I want to dive into your philosophies even more. So we're going to go down even more rabbit holes as we do this. So as you look at this, I mean, let's talk about challenges, right? So did you grow through education? Did you grow through difficulties? Did you grow, like, how did you gain learning? How did you gain the competency to do what you do today?
Experience, taking action. I was not a scholar at school. I had that experience where I flunked by 2 marks, the very important exam that was going to either send me to grammar school or to secondary school, which is where the not so smart kids went. And my sister was already in grammar school, so they wanted me to be in the same school as her. And he was absolutely furious. And I mean, I didn't really need to hear, "You'll never be successful in life," as I'm just about to go into high school. Thanks. Right. You know, knocked the wind out of me. So getting through that piece, as I said, something triggered in my brain. It was like, you know what? I'm just going to rebel against that. I don't believe it. I don't buy into it. And I'm going to prove you dumb or prove you wrong. So I actually carried this negative energy with me till I was actually about 45. And it was an aggressive energy. I'm going to prove you wrong, rather than coming from a place of assertive energy. And I talk about that when I'm actually, speaking on stages. That acknowledgement that, you know what, I need to shift into a softer side of me that is more connected and collaborative, and inviting others in, because I was creating resistance. You're banging against a wall. You don't need to be creating that resistance with others, and it wasn't helping.
Yeah, I can see that there's a distinction to be made about assertiveness and rebellion. You know, there's a rebellion, but that's not the right word. It's almost force, right? Like, I'm going to show you
power versus force. Yeah.
And so assertiveness, the way you're describing it, is assertiveness is a form of confidence. It's a confidence in your abilities, but also you're coming at it from a space that you're respectful of others.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in that, you're able to create more, because if you just come at it and you start hitting people with your information and you're very abrasive, then they're going to push back, right? They're going to get rebellious.
Yeah.
And
it was somebody else that told me, after I came out of my Royal Roads Executive Coach Program, went to an International Coach Federation meeting here in Calgary, and I thought, hey, I'm a new coach. Everyone's going to welcome me with open arms. And they didn't. And so I pulled one of my colleagues aside and I said, like, are they usually this kind of standoffish? And she said, no, it's you. It's your energy is too aggressive. And I was like,
oh, wow. That's the word right there.
Okay.
Aggressive versus assertive.
Yeah.
Like, that would be the distinction to make right there.
Yeah.
And so your experience from that is that as you were aggressive, there was resistance to being even in your presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I could see how that could impact a change initiative. If you're coming in and you're aggressive with a change initiative, you're going to have resistance from those that are on the other side of that change initiative. And assertiveness would be, we need to make this happen. We need to create this, but there's buy-in. There's a participation.
Yeah.
And that's where the caring comes in. I could see where that fits in is the caring is, you matter. I want your input in the creation of this. It has to be created. That's assertiveness is going to be created. Is that accurate?
It's something that you pay attention to when you want to serve versus sell.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Can you talk about that?
Sure. If you're trying to sell somebody on something, very often you get into your my way or the highway, and you're talking at them versus understanding what position they're in right now, what it is that they would like to see shift, what it is that is a challenge, or why is it an issue? Why would they want to work on it? Why now? So you're asking more questions, and then you're bringing forward a suggestion. So actually, in my book, there's a concept called appreciative sales kinetics, which is taking some of the ideas from David Cooperrider's work with appreciative inquiry, and instead of the 4 questions that he came up with, tapping into 2 of them and saying, instead of going to a potential client meeting and saying, tell me about your biggest challenge, which is very traditional and aggressive. They don't want to talk about that. You see their shoulders drop, their energy drops. It's like, oh, here we go. I got to talk about this horrible thing that I created by making a bad decision 6 months ago. So instead, what I say is, what's working really well, and they talk about, because they're proud about it, how could it be even better? And they talk about the future statement. And then I say, well, hey, can I tell you a little bit about what I do? Because I think I can maybe help you get to your goal faster if we co-create something.
Yeah.
And we never get objections because there's nothing to object to. We're talking about a future possible co-creation.
Yeah. What a way to say it, right? I mean, if people can hear that, is a future possible co-creation.
Yeah.
When you go into the world of possibility, it's not attacking character. It's not about anything or anybody. It's not about their past performance. It's a possibility. We're just going to explore a possibility. And in addition to that, and this is where I see in research, there's a lot of buy-in that comes from co-creation. Like when things get mandated, there's more resistance in it. And that's one of the biggest challenges that companies face, is that the resistance to change comes in when things are mandated. And when there's a co-creation in place, then there's buy-in from the employees because it was their idea as much as the company's, or at least there's a perception that it was their idea. And so there's more buy-in.
Well, there is actually some work I did when I first came out of my coaching program. I went to one of my colleagues who was actually the president of the HR Association at that time, and presented him with an idea of a training program to help HR practitioners step into HR business partner mindset and what was required. One of the things was effective change management, as you referred to. It can be tricky.
Yes.
So what I did was I gave them an exercise where they had to build out a template, and they had to build out all the information for the template, gathering it from the people who would be impacted the most by the potential change. So in effect, instead of creating it in a silo in an ivory tower, as HR very often does, and then pushing it out to the organization, it was the pre-conversations was what sold them on the idea. They co-created. And then when the implementation phase happened like that, because people already were familiar with it. They knew what the impact was. They participated in the discussion about what the possible solutions were because they were closest to the problem. They knew what was needed.
Yeah.
And it changed their mindset about what HR does.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful.
Programs. It's about implementing something that works and supports the business.
Yeah.
The business is the heart of the organization.
I love this. I wrote a paper when I was doing my master's degree in industrial psychology, and I wrote it around change initiatives. And it was a paper on the idea that when people are involved in the creation of their change initiative, they're more likely to adopt it. And when there's a change initiative that is mandated down, like we're talking about here, and they're not participating in that creation, even if it's good for them, they'll resist it. There's a resistance to change, even when it would benefit them.
Right.
And so what you're describing here is by involving them in that creation. And this is something that I could see creating confidence in a business owner and in a woman who's going out and starting her business. To know these things creates that competency to be able to go out and do this. But that's where the value of a mentor comes in, because they're going to still have to go out and carve that path in a way and learn how to do that properly.
Right.
With a mentor like you, it's a case of, there's an opportunity. I can stand on your shoulder and you can show me a way of doing that would be even more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, partly the book was going to be longer, except my editor said, stop. You're at 297 pages. Stop already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I cut a couple of chapters out, which are oriented towards leadership, which is another book for another day.
Yeah.
But the wisdom in there was, the wisdom nuggets that have been gathered over the last, 30, I'm older than I look, 30 years in business. And so seeing possibilities is a gift that I bring. When you were a kid and you used to have those join the dots books, and it would be numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you join the lines between 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Well, very often my clients are coming and they've got all these scattered dots. They've got these ideas, but they don't know how to put them together in a fashion that actually can be monetized and makes sense. Right. And taps into their gifts. So that's my role, is hear what they're saying, and then I go, oh, okay, so this is where you join the dots, 1 to here, here to here, here to here, and makes the picture. And then they go, oh, I couldn't do that for myself.
Yeah, wow.
That's hard for me. Like that is really hard for me. Like I've got all this stuff, and then sometimes connecting the dots is pretty tough.
Yeah, where do you start, right? How long is a ball of string?
I get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I get overwhelmed, and yeah.
So I have a program around that. Certainly, without diving into that, because that's another topic, but it's basically 3 steps. First, you visualize and get really clear on what your gifts are and your purpose and how you're going to share and help others. Okay. Then it's about monetizing it. So what's the branding, who's your ideal client, all of those things. And then it's about optimizing, because too many people jump to optimizing too quickly. And then they've got this beautiful website they spent, $50,000 on, and they don't have a traffic strategy to get people looking at it. So it's like a sunny day with the blinds closed that no one can see. Right? So if you get things in the right order, it can make things a lot easier.
That's a term right there. You said optimizing, right? Herbert Simon talks in his term satisficing, which is the idea that when something satisfies and is sufficient for the task, that you'll get more done than you would if you optimize things. And so he's a Nobel Prize winner. This was back in the 50s, 60s, Herbert Simon. And that's in my book, The Art of Accomplishment. And the idea there is that when you start to create your pathways, something that is good enough is better than something that's optimized. Rachel Smart, Dr. Rachel Smart, that's on here with us. She's a league member and she's written some books, and there was a point where she was hung up on how to write the book. And when that concept was taught to her, she was able to move through it quicker, because there was no optimizing. It was just, let's get some content out there and then start adjusting from that. But what I'm hearing you say, going back to what you're describing here, is that you're creating possibilities to satisfy sin. Like somebody sees a possibility and they go straight for optimization. So they spend all their time trying to perfect this thing. And they could spend years and all of their resources trying to make it optimized.
Yeah. I mean, a simple example, if you have a lot of entrepreneurs listening, is implementing Infusionsoft too soon, right? I mean, it's designed for, if you've got at least 10,000 connections or clients in your database, and if you do it too soon, thinking that you'll grow into it, all you do is create chaos and confusion. You're automating chaos.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
How do I know
this? I love it. Yeah. I learned by mistake, but the beauty is you learned, and now somebody else has the opportunity to come sit with you and stand on your shoulder and be able to see that and not make that same choice if they'll listen.
Learning opportunity. I put a line through the word mistake in my book too. I say learning opportunity.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Perfect. So let's keep going down that path here. Give me 1 second. I want to just tag that. If I can write, I can't write. Learning opportunity.
Awesome. I've got so many notes. Like just absorbing it like a sponge. I'm sitting here quiet because I'm like, come to me, all this good stuff. Thank you.
So I have a journal that is created that will be launched pretty quick, and it's on possibilities. It's possibility thinking, and it's listing out all of the possibilities for your dream and your vision. But you start with the vision, and you start in the vision as clearly as you can at a future date, and you write it as though it's a memory. We learned from Catherine Lee, who was on the show. She was on Oprah twice. She had a vision of being on Oprah and what Oprah was wearing and where she was sitting, and it was so vivid. She had a memory of a future event. Mm-hmm. And when that came true, it was nearly identical to what she had envisioned. And she, Oprah never wears blue. Oprah was wearing blue. And that was created. And this is where you're talking about the magic, is when you get clear on your vision to that degree that you have a memory of a future event. And then you step into because where people get, somebody called it the howl hole. They get hung up on the howl hole. And they get stuck in this cycle of trying to figure out the how, and it feels overwhelming, and they give up. And this is where resiliency and perseverance and grit come in, because the how hole is kind of, that's a possibility. Like hows are just possibilities. Mm-hmm. And so when you get into the space of what are all the possibilities today for creating my vision, like you want to hang on to that vision, but the more clear you are, there's Jen. I think it was Jen that said it, the how hole. Mm-hmm. But when you get into that vision and that clarity of that vision, then it helps you to be more resilient. It helps you to be more persevering and to have more grit as you work through it.
Yeah. Well, I do, because of my Reiki training.
Yeah.
The Reiki training, which came about, ironically, when I was in a phase where I'd been doing my coaching work for about 6 years, and I'd ended up attracting some really big contracts. However, it wasn't my sole feeding clients, and one particular senior VP male that I was working with was just kind of the final straw, and I ended up saying, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna step away. And I took 3 months off, did some soul searching, took some Reiki training, took some energetic resonance training.
Wow.
And what I realized was that I couldn't always think my way out of a situation. What I needed to do was, get more familiarity with that brain gut connection. So what I do is I take my clients through a visioning exercise to get them out of their head and into their heart, and getting those two things in alignment. And then we step through, okay, so here's the big vision. Do you have the tools and resources already that you're going to need to get there? Or where do we start working together to help you get there faster?
Wow. I'd like to hear more about your visioning, if you don't mind, a little bit. You don't have to go and share all your details, because I don't want to give it all away. But if you talk about the visioning and what that's like, and what that looks like for you when you go into visioning, can you talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah. Basically, I'm getting them to commit to an hour. Okay. First of all, of undivided time. So if you've got kids, make sure that they're with a sitter or something, so that you can really honor yourself.
Yeah.
And then get really grounded first. So it may be, getting some shoulder rolls going, breaking the.
I'm going to write my vision right now, actually. Yeah.
Right? Before they even start.
Yeah.
So feet firmly on the floor, hands in their lap, palms facing up, ready to receive. Close their eyes. We usually do it on Zoom, so they don't have to take notes, and I get their permission to record it, and then they can listen afterwards to what comes out. And then I take them into a future state scenario and have them talking about what's happening in a year's time. So usually I don't go for 3 to 5 years, which is what some business analysts want to do. I think that the world is moving at a fast enough pace that a year is usually long enough that people can come up with something that's attainable.
Yeah.
And if they get there earlier, great, and we can keep going.
Yeah.
And get them to, from their heart center, tapping into what their heart is telling them, not what their head is telling them, to articulate what's coming up in the vision. And then we pull it apart once they've actually shared everything. Then I get them to open their eyes, and then we start talking about it.
I picture you like you're almost mystical in a way, because you have this scientific mind where you can back everything that you do up with research. And then you've got this other part of you that's in the heart that's like, I don't need all the research. I've got this heart space that's going to go into the what we call the woo-woo, right? And you can go into that because part of this creation that we've learned is that part of it you can't explain. It's magical. I mean, the way it comes about, there is no explanation. We had a video the other day that we did about an event with a song that came up, and there's no explaining it. It happened the way that it happened, and there's no way that could happen with the odds. But it happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I share a story?
Yes. No, no more stories.
No, we're out of story time. I was gonna pan down and show you. I don't know if giants at home can see this, but if you look, like when I'm sitting here, this is what my right hand is doing all the time. If I have to type or something, I'm left-handed, so that's convenient.
Yeah.
Palms up, receiving. When I talk, and a giant's, I'll be sitting like this.
Right.
And then when so if you wonder what I'm doing other than drinking a drink, it's
I'm so
up.
glad that's what you showed. I was getting nervous.
Yeah, it could have got weird, but
it could have got really weird.
Good thing it wasn't that weird with my palms.
Well, Yvonne, I'd love to hear your story.
There's two things with that before I move on. Sharon Saylor, who spoke at my virtual summit in February, she's a body language expert with Fortune 500 companies. She was talking about, Smurf hands. And basically, if you have your hands really close to your body, they are actually in proportion, although it looks like you're actually having your hands out here.
Okay.
Yeah. So, her tip was always show up with your face, the same size as the person who's paying your check or who is hosting, so that you're not having this disproportionate energy that sets you up as not being the expert.
Wow.
Cool. Anyway,
I gotta scoot in a little.
Yeah.
So quick
gotta match face sizes here.
Yeah.
One of my favorite books to recommend to my clients is Attracting Perfect Customers: The Power of Strategic Synchronicity. It's a bit of a mouthful.
Oh
to say.
boy, that's going in my book list.
Attracting.
Yeah.
So there's 4 questions in the book that basically help you to discern who is your ideal client and what do you need to do in order to attract them. So I was actually using that book for my clients, worked really well. And I was in between, wrapped up with my ex-husband, and I wasn't dating anyone else. And I decided I was going to say, attracting your perfect guy. So I crossed out client, put guy, wrote all of my ideal things in answer to these 4 questions. And he actually showed up in 2 weeks because I was crystal clear about what I wanted. The universe knew who to send me, except that he had brown hair instead of blonde hair, but minor detail.
Maybe he had dyed it once and it was, blonde at one point.
He hadn't. But what was funny was because he didn't
had one blonde hair.
Because he didn't have blonde hair, I didn't.
Right. No blonde hair.
That's the guy, right?
Yeah.
And he had 3 kids in tow, which wasn't on my list. But anyway, I found the list in the back of the book when I went to lend it to a friend of mine 2 years later. By that time, we were already married. So I was able to go down the whole list and check off all the things. And then there were all these extra things that were the magic of the universe that I hadn't put down. Likes to make me breakfast on the weekend, buys me flowers every Friday, likes to dance till the sun comes up. I didn't put that down.
Yeah.
But it was where, if you get enough of the clarity, then leave some space for the universe to really amp it up and add magic, because we cannot conceive all the things that greater consciousness can. We can. Our minds would explode.
Yeah.
They have to leave space for them.
Okay, that's cool. That's a cool concept. I just cut off that comment.
It's okay. You're okay.
Yeah. So let the universe.
You want to know the book title again?
So it's called Attracting Perfect Customers.
The Power of Strategic Synchronicity.
Synchronicity. Yeah. Okay.
And it's got a peacock. I don't have it handy. It's got a peacock on the front.
If it's got a peacock on the front, it's a bestseller immediately. Yeah.
It probably is. It's Stacy Hall and Jan Brozhnev.
Yeah. Wow. So this idea, we had Erin Donovan on the show, and she had a clear vision of, she's coming on the show. She was on the park bench, and she wrote her vision of her perfect man. And she shared that with us. And it's so clear and vivid. And there's some things in there that to some people, they might feel that as taboo, but it's her clarity of what she wants in a partner. And it could work really well. And I feel like she's so clear this man is going to show up in her world. And it's something that she's co-creating, right? She wants somebody that she can co-create that relationship with. What you've just offered is like, leave some room for bonus material in a way. The universe is going to surprise you. Yeah, that's cool.
We kind of joke around and we say, you know, the universe is probably up there laughing, right? And saying, let's put these two together and see what happens.
Yeah, look at this.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This guy will dance all night.
Cause some problems.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so
everyone.
15 years later.
Yeah. How long now?
We've been married 15 years in October.
Wow. Congratulations. Yeah, that's beautiful. So let's talk about, you know, we're at 50 minutes in already, and I know you got tons of information in you, and I don't need to drag it all out, but if I were to recap a little bit, and then maybe we can pick up from there, is that you really want to get clear on your vision, because when you get clear on your vision, that's going to add to the confidence. Because you're going to have a clear vision of what you're creating. And then that also adds to purpose. So my understanding of the word purpose, I've had a lot of people get hung up on that word purpose. I need one life purpose, or, you know, something I've got to create that's magical, that there's a one and done, and there's nothing else for me. And the word purpose comes from the word to move forward and to pause. Propose. To pause. And there are multiples of them, is my understanding. So when you have a vision, you might have a vision for one thing, a vision for another, and a vision for another. You might have a vision for a partner and a vision for your company, and they're separate, but you want to have clarity in each, but they both create a purpose, which is, that's where I'll rest. And so as you create that vision, that clarity of where you will rest, then it's a matter of what's the activity I want to put into creating that. And that's where you're talking about the possibilities coming up. And you're also talking about the competency. What are the skills and abilities you're going to need to make that vision a reality? It's not just a magical thing of you wish it and it's done. You're going to have to grow. And I love that, because that puts it right back into the book, you know, the giants, because you're going to have to grow in capacity to be able to handle that vision.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, I mean, that's why they call it flatlining, right? If you don't have these huge peaks, then, whoa, shoot, that was scary. Oh, it'd just be, right? Life would be boring.
Don't flatline your vision, right?
There you go.
There you go. Well, I summed up all of your content. That's fantastic. And I know that's not even close to the case, but Maureen Pisani, you might know her. Yeah,
I interviewed her on my radio show a little while ago.
I didn't know that.
She's fabulous. Yeah, she's fabulous. That's not a word I use very often, but I'll use it tonight. Fabulous.
Super fabulous, both of you.
So let me ask you on wisdom. You know, if somebody was starting on their journey and you had the chance, or even yourself, let's say you went back in time, you were able to give yourself a piece of wisdom to share with yourself that you could carry through, that would really impact your journey and help you to stay focused or confident throughout. And now I'm priming you a little too much there. I'm boxing it in. But if you could pick one piece of wisdom, whatever first came to mind with that, what would that be?
It's actually two parts. First is to make yourself the priority and put yourself first every day. So, you know, make time for a daily ritual, meditation, ground yourself before anybody else comes into your space. I don't generally take meetings before 10 a.m. in the morning so that I'm fully grounded. I've got my priorities in first. And then the other thing is recognizing that time is your most precious resource, because it's non-renewable. And so, you know, the value, obviously, relationship currency is another highly valued concept. But non-renewable time means don't waste it, because you can get it back. You know, I don't want to be flippant, but you can always make more money, but you'll never get your time back. So if someone's wasting it and you've given them permission to waste it, then it's your fault, right?
Yeah,
So
I heard a statement the other day that when a person comes from the space of being a victim, it's because they don't have boundaries. And now there are some cases where those boundaries were completely robbed. I get that. But in many cases, it's we didn't hold to our boundaries, and now we're in a space of having to clean up the mess because we didn't hold those boundaries. Like that time, that resource of time is one of those places where people, I do it. Like I let people in on that time, and then I'm feeling like, well, I'm missing my time, and then I'm the victim in that situation because I didn't honor my boundaries.
Yeah. Which is why I get up first. Like I'm always up at least an hour before anybody else in my household. That's how I got my book written. And it was almost like a download kind of came through me because I did my meditation first. And then I was like, okay, what 40 words am I going to put in here? Originally it was 52, like Gretchen Rubin, you know, a word for every week. But then it got too long. So I cut it down to 40 words, thinking, you know, 40 words, 40 nights. There's still some commonality in there. But it was like I was in that zone where I'd done my journaling, I'd done my gratitudes, I'd done my holosync recordings and my movies, and I was ready and primed. I started writing. It was like, it just flowed through me. So
okay, so you're not the first person to use the phrase download. Richard Paul Evans, when we went to his event, he talked about downloads, that he gets into the flow and it comes in such a flood that is like a download. I've written poems and books in just a day, entire books in a day. And it's because I get into this flow, and it's like you're saying, it's like a download, and it's by creating this space, right?
Yeah, that's that piece I mentioned earlier about, greater consciousness. Is really there to feed into you as the vessel for it, and it'll come out far greater than you ever imagined if you leave space.
Yeah, I had a vision back a while back, Ryan. I talked to you about this, that if we were on boats, right, and we're out on this glass lake, and this glass lake is just out in front of everybody's just glass, perfect, and behind the boats is the wake, which we're all out there driving our boats on this glassy lake, and we each leave a wake. And some wakes are bigger than others, and some people join their wakes to other wakes, and they create a massive wake. And that's kind of what's happening with the Tribe of Giants. And you go out there and you get to create it in any way that you want. And you become this vessel of creation, so that the universe in a way is saying everything out here is available. These are all the possibilities. There's nothing that's limited to you. And the wake is what we choose out of all of that. Right. And the way you're describing it is you're a vessel for the download of this creation from the greater consciousness. And that might be different for everybody. Somebody might not be religious. They might not be into consciousness. Science is showing it. Somebody might not believe in science. That's okay. I mean, there's another way. Maybe God's showing it to you. Whatever it is, whatever works for you, just know that there's something out there to support your vision if you'll open up and be the vessel. And that's what I'm hearing from you. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Yep.
But it's kind of like, if you're in a pond, right, and you're kicking up all this activity, you're kicking up all the mud at the bottom.
Yeah.
If you stop and stand stock still and let the water settle, you'll have the clarity. So you got to create space in your day, and that's why I do it first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Clarity, so that you can then start kicking up the mud and getting going with stuff.
And just kick it furiously once you get clarity. Yeah.
Splash.
Yeah, just splash and have fun. Yeah, I love that. But creating that space. So you talk about making yourself the priority. There was a comment that was shared that, the idea that being a giant is self-centered. It's self-prioritized would be a better phrase for it.
Yeah.
Right. And then the idea that time is your most valuable resource. It's the one commodity that all of us have. It is relative. We might perceive it a little differently, but it seems to be this limited resource. There's a 24-hour period that we measure that we have to create with. Mm-hmm. And realistically, it's moment to moment, a moment, even being less than a minute and a half, it's a moment. It's like we have this brief opening to create in our space. And if we lose that, then that's it.
Well, we have 24 hours in every day. You do, I do, we all do, right? So how are you going to invest? And I don't mean spend.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
That time so that it has the most impact in nourishing your soul, impact, as Viktor Frankl said in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, that it has the biggest, most purposeful impact because it's serving others in a way that's greater than just yourself.
Dick's never read that book, by the way.
No.
Well,
No,
Oh,
I
he
like
has. That's all he talks about. So when you just said that, I was like, that's why we did a double take. I was like, wait, what?
I didn't know that, but
Speaking of all the woo-woo, we've had some woo-woo moments, and you don't know a lot of them, and the viewers at home don't know a lot of them because every time something's coming in right now, and I'm conscious of it, I look up. Nick knows, and he smiles a little bit because we have some things that are creating and happening in flow right now. That as you're saying it, it's resonating, and you're saying things that we just talked about earlier today, and earlier this week, and earlier this month, and bam, here it is.
Well,
Yeah.
what I appreciate about this, Yvonne, is that there's an opportunity to co-create, even though we might not be business partners in that co-creation. In this conversation, there's a co-creation because you're sharing information. If I think I've got all the answers and I've got the perspective and my perspective is right, and you start talking and I don't hear that because I think I've got all the answers, then I miss out on that co-creation. And there's so much opportunity in having a conversation with somebody that has so much experience that's outside of my scope of experience. Like there are things that I want to learn, about creation and vision. There's another perspective. I want all of them. I want all the facets of that diamond so that I could see it from every angle. And
sounds like another show.
Yeah. Hey, we need to do it. Let's do this. We got shows upon shows.
Yeah.
Are you good on time still for just a little bit longer? You okay
Yep.
for a minute?
Yep.
I just want to be respectful of time. So
perfect. What else do you want to share tonight? What else was really important for you to make sure that the viewers knew?
Well, when you talked about resilience earlier on,
yeah,
and particularly because of your passion for kids and potential,
yeah,
you may not know this story, but with my special needs son, Alex,
yeah.
So he was born with some pieces missing from his brain. He started having seizures when he was a year old. So, talk about how do you build resilience? Well, if you're watching your 1-year-old baby seizing on the hospital table and not being able to do anything about it, and they stick a needle in his jugular vein, I mean, it gives you a new perspective.
Holy cow. Yeah, yeah.
So I had heard the doctor say, oh, I don't think he'll ever be able to walk. And I was like, oh, hell no. So he did walk, and it was 2.5 years. He was 2.5 years old by the time he actually got his balance and learned to walk, because he's got, 2 different ventricles, different sizes. It's kind of like coming out of the swimming pool and your ears are full of water, right?
Okay.
So balance was not a good thing for him. But what I wanted him to do when he came to me one day and he's like, Mom, I need a credit card. Okay, tell me more. I want to buy a kid a smile. What? So he pulls me into the living room, and he's been watching an Operation Smile telethon, and he's been told, like, if you don't have $250 to make a donation to help fix a kid's cleft palate, that you can do it on your credit card. So, Mom, I need a credit card. So his special
you got one of those, yeah.
Well, he wanted his own, right?
Okay.
Streak, right? So.
Yeah.
I applied 3 times. His application sort of vanished into the ethers. So he gets fed up and he's like, Mom, I'm going to sell my paintings and I'm going to raise money that way.
Holy cow. So yeah. I'm hearing it.
This is what he was doing until he had some recent health issues. But 2 years ago, we'd actually sold enough paintings to send 4 kids to have their surgeries.
Oh my gosh.
I got him on global TV. I had him on Dragon's Den as a first round pitch.
Holy cow.
And it's really about his message. If he gets through his health challenges, then he will be able to go back out into schools and talk to kids, probably age 6 to 12, I'm thinking is the message, that no matter what your circumstances are, anyone can make a difference.
Wow. Holy cow.
Proof of that.
Yvonne, we're teaching 300 special needs teachers, special ed teachers on July 26th. Oh. And if you're okay with me sharing that story, the idea that we're approaching it from is from the idea of resilience. Mm-hmm. That the giant story, there are even adults who never developed in that space where they don't have the resilience. And so they're learning it, they're reparenting themselves. Right. And what we heard in your son's story is one way didn't work. So we went and found another path, and he did it that way. And he would have kept going. And he sponsored 4 kids. So when somebody said, you're not going to walk, somebody tells him no, he's like, okay, I'm going to find another way.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That message right there, I want to share that, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Because the reality is, the idea of the giants and the smalls is the idea that that's an internal journey that each of us face, from going from feeling that small, whatever our circumstance was when we began, to reaching our potential, to not giving up, to just going and finding people to help us stand on their shoulders so we can see.
Yep.
To not take no as an answer. Yes lives in the land of no, from Steve Chandler. You know, just keep pursuing it, because it's out there and it lives in the land of no.
Yeah.
And so
you just got to keep taking steps forward.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. I think it's a great way to end the show. Is there anything else that you want to share? Or?
Oh, we could be here all night.
Yeah.
I want to learn some more about some of your other guests. So I'm going to have to go back and listen to a few of the
We're all
earlier.
going to go take a potty break. We'll be back after this.
Yeah. 2 more hours, guys. Let's go. It's a marathon. Yeah.
Is this Clubhouse?
Yeah.
Right.
What we could do, though, is we do have a radio show where we'd love to have you on as an expert. I just I feel there's so much knowledge in you that you could share around different areas if you're open to that. You know, it's something that we're creating. It's called Wake Up with Giants Radio.
Melissa's on that as well.
Yeah.
And Rachel and Nicole and Alyssa, who's on here as well. We've got a great group of people that are involved in that. So
it's just one.
I believe in the power of radio shows. I mean, I have my own Words, Women, and Wisdom radio show where I interview women who have typically risen from some sort of tragedy to triumph, and are now out there doing amazing things in the world. And I love talking to those women and showcasing that positive mission. So
yeah, well, you are phenomenal. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me as a guest. I have really enjoyed some of the insights that have been shared by both of you as well, and some of those, you know, have you read, have you heard, and this quote and that quote. So this has been mutually entertaining. I hope the audience has gotten some nuggets.
Yeah, we hope so. Yeah,
tell us too where we can follow you and find you, and we love to promote the guests that are on the show, because there's people out there that you know, that need this, and that there we go. There's some right there. But what else? Where else can we find you?
So you can certainly find me, track me down on LinkedIn, Yvonne E.L. Silver. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter. My website is Words, Women, and, spelled out AND versus the ampersand on the book, wordswomenandwisdom.com. And if listeners are really interested in the book and they want to have 3 free chapters, they can actually go to my website, hit a red button, and give them an opportunity to keep in touch through the Wisdom Women and Wisdom VIP community and receive a 3-chapter download as part of the book.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's cool. Ryan, any other thoughts as we wrap up here?
You know, like we said it like on the last show, that you know, if there was only one show that somebody had to listen to for the rest of their lives, and they could listen to that show and they could be successful, it was our last show. But I would say it about this one as well. Like if you only had this episode in your playlist, or, you know, on Audible or whatever, this is it. This is a great one. You could be very, very, very successful just applying the small amount of nuggets that we could fit in an hour and 8 minutes and 3 seconds tonight. And so if you're at home, go back. If you haven't watched this or caught at the end of it, watch the replay. If you watched it, maybe go back and watch it again and take some more notes, and then reflect and do some of those things that were talked about, because you could be very, very successful and have unshakable confidence by doing the things that she said today. So there you go.
Well, thank you for asking some of the powerful questions that drew out some answers that you found valuable.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. And for those that are watching, continue to make it a giant day. Go out there and change the world. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please do that. Share this with your friends and family. Join us over on the Tribe of Giants on Facebook. That community is growing, and it's a highly engaged community. And so we'd love to see you over there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.
Love you too.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Nick.
You're welcome.